Taehyung almost cried in the middle of BTS's soundcheck in Toronto, and all of this happened because Jungkook was still angry. Soundcheck even came to a brief stop when Taehyung tried to explain something that Jungkook had misunderstood all this time. Jungkook looked cold and kept his distance, making Taehyung feel increasingly pressured. But this time, Taehyung did not back down and chose to face Jungkook directly. With tears beginning to well up in his eyes, Taehyung asked Jungkook to listen to his explanation until the end. He was afraid that Jungkook would make a decision based only on something that was actually not what it seemed. Jungkook finally stopped avoiding him and silently looked at Taehyung. But what actually made Jungkook so angry with Taehyung? And why did Taehyung look so afraid of losing Jungkook that day? ARMY, welcome back to VFX. Today we've got another exciting update you won't want to miss, so stay tuned until the end. Soundcheck on the second day of BTS in Toronto suddenly turned into a tense moment when Taehyung and Jungkook became involved in a serious conversation in the middle of stage preparations. Jungkook looked quieter than usual and repeatedly kept his distance from Taehyung. Meanwhile, Taehyung seemed to keep trying to approach Jungkook. Something was clearly happening between the two of them until the atmosphere during soundcheck slowly changed. From the beginning of soundcheck, Taehyung repeatedly tried to get Jungkook's attention. However, Jungkook still looked upset and chose to focus on preparing for the performance. Every time Taehyung approached, Jungkook seemed to try to avoid him and did not give him a chance to talk. That attitude eventually made Taehyung realize that the problem between them could not simply be left unresolved. In the middle of the music being prepared, Taehyung finally approached Jungkook and asked for a moment of his time. Jungkook initially seemed reluctant to respond, but Taehyung continued to stand in front of him. With a serious expression, Taehyung asked Jungkook to listen to his explanation first. He did not want Jungkook to remain angry over something he did not fully understand yet. "This time you have to listen to me until I'm finished, Jungkook," seemed to be the sentence that changed the atmosphere at that moment. Taehyung then tried to explain what had actually happened in their relationship. He wanted Jungkook to understand his feelings without interrupting him or jumping to conclusions. Jungkook, who had previously looked cold, finally chose to stay silent and give Taehyung a chance to speak. The conversation took place while soundcheck was supposed to be continuing, so several people around them began to notice the change in atmosphere. The music that had previously been playing from the stage was eventually stopped for a while. Taehyung and Jungkook stood facing each other, as if they no longer cared about what was happening around them. The moment caused the second day of soundcheck to briefly come to a halt because the two of them were dealing with a much more personal matter. Taehyung looked like he was trying to explain everything calmly, even though Jungkook's expression still showed disappointment. He said that he had never intended to make Jungkook feel ignored or doubt their relationship. For Taehyung, the most important thing was for Jungkook to hear his entire explanation before deciding how he felt. He only asked for one chance to make everything clear. Jungkook eventually stopped looking away and began to truly pay attention to Taehyung. His expression, which had previously looked harsh, slowly became calmer. There was no longer any attempt to avoid the conversation because Jungkook finally understood that Taehyung genuinely wanted to resolve their problem. For a moment, the two of them simply stood silently after the long conversation. Taehyung then looked slightly relieved after saying everything he had wanted to say all along. Jungkook still did not say much, but his attitude had already changed. He no longer kept his distance and instead stood closer to Taehyung. As if without needing many words, Jungkook began to show that his anger was slowly fading. The most emotional moment came when Jungkook finally held Taehyung's hand before they returned to their respective positions. The gesture was simple, but to Taehyung, it seemed like an answer that Jungkook was still choosing to listen to him and understand him. Taehyung returned the gesture with a small smile. The tension that had filled the atmosphere from the beginning finally began to disappear. Not long afterward, soundcheck continued as usual. The two of them returned to the stage and prepared to rehearse with the other members. This time, however, their relationship appeared much calmer than before. Every now and then, Jungkook still glanced toward Taehyung, while Taehyung also seemed to make sure that Jungkook was near him. For the fans who witnessed the moment in this story, what happened during the second day of the Toronto Soundcheck felt like one of the most emotional moments. Not because of their argument, but because the two of them ultimately chose to listen to each other rather than allow the misunderstanding to grow. Taehyung asked for a chance to explain, and Jungkook chose to give him that chance. In the end, a single handhold became a sign that their relationship was not over and that they both still wanted to fight for it. However, the real reason why Jungkook seemed so upset with Taehyung remained a mystery. No one truly knew what had happened before Soundcheck began that caused Jungkook's attitude to change so drastically. Taehyung was seen several times trying to explain something, while Jungkook simply listened with a serious expression. It was as though there was a misunderstanding between them that they had not had the chance to resolve before stepping onto the stage. From the brief conversation that could be heard, Taehyung repeatedly tried to convince Jungkook that what he had seen was not what he thought it was. Taehyung even seemed to say that Jungkook should not jump to conclusions before hearing the full story from him. But Jungkook still appeared to be holding back his emotions and chose to remain silent. That attitude only made the curiosity grow about what Taehyung had actually done that made Jungkook feel so disappointed. What made the situation even more complicated was how serious Taehyung looked when asking Jungkook to give him a chance to explain. He even seemed unwilling to leave the place before Jungkook had truly listened to his entire story. Meanwhile, Jungkook repeatedly looked at Taehyung as if he was still trying to understand something that had filled his mind with questions. Neither of them revealed the issue in front of the others. Until Soundcheck resumed, the answer to Jungkook's anger remained completely unclear. Only one thing was obvious. Jungkook had misunderstood something Taehyung had done, while Taehyung was trying desperately to correct that misunderstanding. What exactly had Jungkook seen or heard that made him so hurt? And why was Taehyung so afraid that Jungkook would make a decision before knowing the truth? The answer seemed to remain hidden between the two of them. The atmosphere became even more emotional when Taehyung's expression slowly changed after seeing that Jungkook still did not completely believe his explanation. Taehyung, who usually managed to hide his feelings, looked like he was struggling to maintain his composure this time. His gaze repeatedly fell toward Jungkook, as if searching for a sign that their relationship could still be saved. In the middle of the paused soundcheck, Taehyung looked genuinely devastated by this situation. Taehyung then took a deep breath and tried to continue his explanation, but his eyes appeared to begin filling with tears. He did not want to cry in front of Jungkook, especially when several people were not far from them. However, his expression made it difficult to hide the fear he was feeling. It was not simply the fear of Jungkook being angry. Taehyung seemed afraid that the misunderstanding would make Jungkook truly distance himself from him. Jungkook, who had initially still looked cold, eventually noticed the change in Taehyung's expression. For the first time since the conversation began, Jungkook's attitude seemed to soften slightly. He watched Taehyung trying to hold back his tears while continuing to explain what had actually happened. The moment made the atmosphere even quieter, as if everything around them disappeared for a while. Taehyung then looked at Jungkook and asked for one simple thing, not to leave him before hearing everything until the end. His voice sounded softer than before, but his emotions felt even stronger. Jungkook did not answer immediately, but this time he no longer pulled away. And when Taehyung's hand slowly reached for his, Jungkook finally remained there, as if giving Taehyung one last chance to reveal the truth he had been keeping hidden all this time. Leave your positive comments here. The best comment will be pinned as a way to honor their love. Thank you to everyone who continues to support this channel. May God reward all of your kindness. This video reflects my personal opinion and interpretation. It is made for entertainment purposes only and does not represent confirmed facts.